So my guests today are Justin Patrick Pierce and London Angel Winters. Thank you so much for being here. Your more recent book, Playing with Fire, has been such an inspiration. I'm so grateful for your vulnerability, your transparency, and for your willingness to say yes and be here today. So
Hmm.
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
really happy to be here with you.
Very happy to be
Yeah.
here.
Great. As we begin, I would love to hear how your story began. It seems like you write a lot about these moments in the last 5 years or so, but if you could take us back to the beginning, I find myself wondering, particularly, was this commitment to sexual ecstasy, was it present in the beginning of your relationship?
You're gonna leave me with that one. It's hard to remember. Honestly, it was so long ago. But yes. So um I I dedicated myself to sex as a living prayer about 2 decades ago. I grew up in a very repressed sexual environment due to many things, like a mom who was shut down, a dad who would never address it, religion, lots of things kind of created this like huge sexual suppression. But I was a very sexual person. And I was also in love with creator. So I tried so hard to like live by the rules I was given. It just didn't work. So at one point I just woke up and embraced that sex was going to become a living prayer for me and I was going to live it in the highest form. And that's when I got involved in these arts. I met Justin randomly, not through this work. And I never even told him I was doing this work. There was nothing wrong with him. I wasn't coming from this work looking for the ultimate man. I was really dedicated to discovering how my body could become a vehicle for love, but also respect and all of the things that make it feel sacred. So when I met Justin, he was 14 years younger than me, and there was just nothing in my mind that thought we would be together. But his consciousness was so incredible. I kept getting drawn into him as a person, and we just connected on such a deep level. And both of our logical minds had to be put aside for us to imagine that we could potentially be a couple. But we just surrendered into the truth of it, that we didn't want to spend our time with anyone but each other. And here we are, over a decade later, with a daughter, teaching this work and living it to the max, and really not just living it, but experimenting. Like, what are the edges of this thing? And what can we learn? And what can we be given that sets people free in this work?
Um, Justin, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, there were plenty of things wrong with me when she met me. Being young, 24 at the time, um, new in LA, personal trainer. Like, I was not looking for a committed relationship. I was looking for dating. I was looking for trouble. And I was not, um, you know, if someone were to say to me the words integrity or trustworthy, I wouldn't even know what those meant. They were not on my radar. They weren't who I was. And so London met me at a time when I was that person. And even though I grew up young, I had a very deep spiritual side to me. I always kept it secret. So I began meditating when I was about 11 years old in the basement of my family's house. But that was something I never shared with my friends or anything. So I had this spiritual side of me that was very secret. And then this other side of me that was very ready to get into trouble. And so when I met London, it didn't seem like we were going to connect in this way. But slowly we got closer. And I felt with London that that spiritual side of me that I had been hiding from everyone in my whole life, it suddenly had a room to come out. And as it came out, we began exploring this work together and we just never stopped.
So, as you began to explore this, how intentional was it within that partnership. And I guess maybe a better way to say it is like, I know that you work with couples now. And a lot of times in my practice, right, I see one person from a partnership coming and saying, I would love to create a difference in my relationship. Whether it's like, I want more sexual connection or just like, I want more intimacy, separate from something more explicitly sexual. And I wonder, can one person open the door to this kind of shift, or does it take both people being willing to do this work equally?
Well, the first time it even came up in conversation, London wasn't forcing it on me. But at a certain point, she did invite me to go to an event. And when she invited me, my first thought was, oh, that sounds terrible, an intimacy workshop. And I ended up going. And because I was able to get the experience and feel her practice and see who we both could become in those practices and in that space, it was a life-changing moment for me. And once I got to taste that, I felt, wow, there's so much more available in relationship than I ever imagined. And that was, once I experienced that, I never turned back.
That said, prior to me inviting him, it was a long time before I even mentioned it to him, because I was bringing a level of depth as his woman that was inspiring a level of depth in him. There was truly nothing wrong. When I mentioned the workshop, it was because the organizers were like, we just lost a man. Londin, we heard you have a great man. Do you think you could bring your man? But, I wasn't interested in changing him with this work. I was interested in inviting him into a level of depth in our relating. And that didn't require a workshop. That required me to not collude in the surface stuff. So he was young and really good looking, like hitting the scene in LA. And the whole deal with all the other women was like the surface game playing. And the women were kind of like sexy, bulletproof, I don't need you. And the men were like, here I am, Mr. Peacock. And it was this whole thing. I wasn't doing any of that. Here I am, like almost 40, deeply devoted to my heart revealed and my yoni available to love, not to the man, but to love. And Justin, having meditated since he was 11, that part of him saw me and showed up to me. And so I got a side of Justin no one else did. And that's one thing I teach all my clients is you can collude in surface relating. You can collude in avoidance. You can collude in scrolling your phone when you're sitting across the table each other at a meal, or you can inspire the kind of relating that's actually nourishing, the kind of relating that doesn't have masks on and guards up and things that are so untrustworthy being stepped right over. I was showing Justin, like, ouch. If you pick up your phone and check a message from another woman when I'm here, ouch. Like, I wasn't afraid to do those kinds of things. And that calls forth a level of awareness in him, right? My sensitivity was revealed. That calls forth a level of attunement to me. But also, I wasn't interested in fixing him. And that calls forth a level of equanimity in him, not trying to fix me. And so from the very beginning, we had these things. But once we actually started practicing the art form, now we were really playing good music because we were doing things together. And it became this beautiful North Star of our relationship that allowed us to not create patterns of avoidance. And patterns of avoidance destroy libido. Most people are grasping, like, is it my age? Is it my hormones? Is it, some sort of thing going on in our relationship? Yes, it is. It's what's going on in your relationship. Avoidance kills libido. When you're swallowing no's, you lose your yes. And the genitals display outwardly what the heart is feeling. And as the heart starts to pull away and shut down and guard and pretend, do all these things, the genitals just sort of turtle in. And so what we're really here to do is like bloom in the heart, bloom in the genitals, bloom in the pineal and the crown, and share that together.
We were first getting together in that relationship. I remember being terrified of committing again to a long-term relationship because I wasn't sure that I could even be in a committed relationship because I thought I would always need variety. Like I always needed to be dating. I always needed different things. And committing to one woman meant I would lose freedom. And it meant, like, what am I going to do with this part of me that has such a strong sexual desire? Because in order to make this work, I'm going to have to like bury that and hide it. Or as I did in the past, let it leak out in unskillful ways. Right. So for me, this commitment was terrifying in a way, but through the work that we were practicing together, and now that we teach, when we can explore sexual desire in a way, it's a way where finally, for the first time, it felt like there was a place for that endless intensity of my sexual desire inside of a committed relationship. And by exploring sexual desire creatively together, this never gets boring. This is new every time. We've been doing this now for 15 years together. And every time we make love, it's a brand new experience, as exciting as any other moment that we've ever had together in lovemaking. And it's only because of these practices that has allowed that. And now I feel like an absolutely free man, truly freer than I've ever felt single in a long-term committed relationship.
That's fantastic. Thank you for illuminating that. So, as a primer to those listening, can you give a kind of an overview of, like, I'd love to start in the center, right? Your work, you talk about the lower pyramid, the upper pyramid, and the center circle. And it almost seems like if we could start in the center and then maybe move out into some of your practices, it could help to explain. So, can you tell us about alpha and omega?
Um, if I may, is it okay if we start with the bottom? Yeah.
You lead the way.
So in our work, we start with the lower triangle. And the lower triangle is so important because polarity work is becoming more and more popular. The idea of archetypes is out there in the world. You got to be the masculine or the feminine in order to get what you want. People can feel like they have to become this thing that is not them to make relationship work. And our work doesn't represent that whatsoever. In fact, it's not necessary because we can only put on a facade for so long. Our intimate partner is going to experience the real us in a certain point. You can't hide. It works for a few months, but not for years. So we have to find something that is absolutely authentically true. And that's why in the lower triangle, when we practice awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity, we call that the hearth. And inside the hearth of your intimate relationship, you learn how to connect and relate and communicate in a way that is honest, that can process difficult emotions that come up in the relationship, but can also be a space to share wonderful emotions, pleasant feelings. But you're doing it in a way that's not therapeutic. You're doing it in a way that preserves polarity. So if you were to imagine sitting down with your partner and talking about emotions, a lot of people don't see how that could ever be sexy.
Mm.
The reason being is because most of those conversations are conversations of resonance. The conversations, well, when you did this, it made me feel this, and that hurt me, and I would need you to agree not to do that. Okay, I hear you. I would need. So it's conversational. It's a very healing modality, but it doesn't create fire. It doesn't create intimate desire. So in our practice, we developed this technology where you can sit down and have that experience of running emotion through your relationship without losing polarity. And the way you do that is one person has to be the feeler and one person is the seer. And we're learning how to express what we see and feel in real time. And just by there being a feeler and a seer present, you already have polarity. You already have polarity when there's a feeler and a seer. If there's two seers, resonance. Two feelers, resonance. And that can lead to fighting with couples. But when you have a feeler and a seer, it changes the dynamic immediately and allows polarity to get created there. Now, when you have two people seeing and feeling one another with equanimity, not reacting, not becoming defensive, not being judgmental, but there's just the purity of seeing and feeling, automatically it's going to create an experience of love and trust between those two people. Automatically, trust is built. I'll give you one example how. If London was hurting and she said she feels hurt in some way,
I feel sad because I wanted you to take time with me and I ended up spending it alone.
I see that I hurt you. I see you're sad right now because of what I said and did earlier.
I feel seen. I feel myself softening.
I see you opening and softening. I see a smile that I love. I want to pause right there. Now, this was a quick transition from sad emotion to something pleasant. But when other people do this, they might be in that difficult moment for a long time. But when we're able to bring our own seer without our ego and our defenses, and to just see with that level of awareness, I see you're hurting, and I see it's because I did this or I did something to hurt you. That's better than any I'm sorry in the world, because it's a demonstration that I am aware. And it's that demonstration of awareness that actually creates real trust. Whoa, you're aware. Now, when we do these practices, I'll be the feeler, she'll be the seer. Then we switch. I'm the seer, she's the feeler. So it goes both ways. And that's why in our body of work, we don't use the terms masculine and feminine, because when we understand these terms of alpha and omega as consciousness or the seer, the one observing, and then the one experiencing, the feeler, as omega, suddenly we realize this has nothing to do with gender. We are both the seer and the feeler in ourselves and in our relationship. When we create a healthy relationship there, we create a hearth of love and trust. The stronger that hearth, then we can introduce desire, I want, and really start playing with fire inside of a safe container.
Okay, that was amazing. Thank you. It's like all of my follow-up questions just sort of disappeared because I think that you hit so many of them, but a few things that I I want to highlight or clarify. As you said, it's not gender specific. I, so these are a couple of things that I want to clarify. I think you said I am the seer and the feeler,
Mm-hmm.
and you said you kind of alternate with these roles. So are you the seer and the feeler at the same time, or are you taking turns and sort of alternating masterfully between the two?
Yeah. So right now, you, me, her, everyone is simultaneously feeling and seeing. And we know that's happening when our inner voice is like, what's the matter with you? Why are you behaving this way? Why didn't you show up that way? And your inside is feeling and aching and like, oh, but I can't. There's an inner marriage, is what we call it. That inner voice that's criticizing you is your alpha criticizing your omega. So that dynamic of your voice of consciousness, or you could call the I and the me, that's happening in us all the time. When we do practice and she's the feeler, I take all of my attention off of my feel. I'm not the feeler. She's the feeler. And I place all of my attention on her and her world. I see her unconditionally. And this is what a great therapist would do for anybody. You sit down with a therapist, you say, I feel, I feel, I feel. And the therapist says, I see, I see, I see. And it's so healing. Intimate partners can learn to do this for each other and do it in a way that creates polarity, creates the sexual desire. So, as the seer, my attention is off of me and completely in service of her, as if to say, I see you, I understand what you're feeling.
And then my attention as the feeler is completely on me. Now, let me just point one thing out. You know, listening to this, you might be like, finally, a man attuning to me. But women often won't give up the seer. And the way they do it is, I wonder if he's having a good time. I wonder if my feelings are too much for him. I wonder if I showed how really angry I am, if he would be able to handle it. I still have my attention on him because I'm codependently managing everything that might happen over here if I was to be authentic. So as the feeler, I take the courage of trusting the moment and I go all the way into letting my attention off him and on me. Step two, I might have been avoiding what I've been feeling through Sauvignon Blanc, chips, chocolate, shopping, you know, right? Like it might have been a couple of years since I was really willing to take a deep breath into my low belly and find out everything here. And so this practice encourages me as the feeler to get real. Now, you know what happens is breath brings feeling. So for me to really be the feeler, I'm going to need to take a deep breath all the way down the front of my body. And guess where that breath is going to go? Into my genitals. And guess what my genitals are going to do? Wake up. Here's the libido. It's being willing to be fully immersed in my experience as a gift to a relationship. That's the thing nobody gets. Is like, if you can't feel libido, how deeply are you breathing? How current are you emotionally? And do you feel safe to show all of that in your intimate relationship? Because it's one thing to go do that by yourself in the car and have a meltdown. It's another thing to vulnerably show it to the person that you are with. And this is where the magic starts to come. When his attention is off of himself, non reactive, and I say, I feel angry because I feel like you lied to me. And he doesn't react. Instead, he really takes it in. The amount of healing that happens, years can come off of a relationship.
And in such a moment, hearing your partner say that, no matter who you are, that's going to hurt. Like that's going to trigger something. And so you're not sitting over here not hurt or affected, like as if you're numb. But you notice, like, oh, that's an ouch. And then you watch your defense mechanisms, but you did it, and you did it. Like you see like your defense pattern wanting to play out. And if you go down that road, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be the relationship either of you want, period. Your ego might feel justified and correct, but your relationship will suffer. So this is truly an ego transcending practice where she says that. And can I take my attention entirely off of myself and put it on her world, land in her reality, her experience without my filter? I see her hurting, right? I see what I did earlier. That's the moment we start to heal and create authentic trust back in the relationship. And that trust is necessary to feel sexual desire. A lot of couples don't realize, but where has your desire gone? It's gone in all of the losses of trust and harbored resentments you're holding on to. And you won't feel fire turn on until trust is restored.
And then we switch. And now I have my attention on him. And he's the feeler. And that's when he says, I feel hurt. And I say, I see my withdrawal of love hurt you.
Yeah.
I see I put you out in the cold. And I see that I love you. And I would never want to do that to you. And now we're just building back our union like the day we met. This is where you still share a laugh together, 15 years later. This is where you still rip each other's clothes off 15 years later. Because you're cleaning the pool. We call it the pool cleaner. And like some days there's a tree in there, but you have a practice that cleans it out until it's sparkling and you want to dive in.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a man doing this, for a lot of men, they might be confronted by two things initially, even imagining saying what they feel to their partner. The one feeling is, I don't want to put what I actually feel on my partner because I'm afraid they won't be able to handle it. So there's fear because there's caretaking there, as if to say, I don't want to burden you any further with what I'm actually feeling. So they hide it, right? But she can still feel it. She knows there's something blocked there. And what men do instead is they'll turn to alcohol, they'll zone out with television, they'll find avoidant activity so they don't have to go there. And that avoidance just continues to create greater and greater distance in the intimate relationship. The second objection that men will experience as the feeler is, oh, that's weak. That's weak to say what you feel. That's not what a man does. A man is only in the position of seeing. When men are avoidant of their own emotions, it's a sign of fear. They're afraid to actually feel what's there, and then they're afraid to express it. It's not a demonstration of strength. It's a demonstration of fear of going there, right? Real emotional strength is the ability to feel an emotion, let it flow freely, and have complete equanimity, whether it's there or not. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'm in love. I feel joy. I feel this. And it's non-attachment. That is real emotional strength. And when men figure that out and develop that, it is a life-changing paradigm where men start to understand the more they can actually feel the emotion without reacting to it, it's actually creates more trust in their relationship and leads to greater turnover.
How beautiful. Thank you for the demonstration and the clarity. So, London, you said earlier that women can get stuck in, like, they don't relinquish the IC role. They want to be in the alpha still, or maybe they don't want to, but it's habit. What happens when both people are like going, no, 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 I want to feel, right? Like, I'm in Omega. It's my turn to express and all my hurts. Like, almost the practical question is, how do you decide how it begins and when it's time to switch places?
We set a timer for 20 minutes.
It's so practical.
And there's if the first bell goes off at the 10-minute mark, another bell goes off, and then a final bell at 20 minutes. So for the first 10 minutes, I'm feeler, she's seer. Bell goes off, we switch. So when you do this type of work, you want to have a tight container on it. You want to be very intentional the way when you're relating in this way, where you sit down, because both of you go, okay, I could survive this for 20 minutes, no matter what it looks like. Now, when you first start, it feels like you're just surviving. When you get better at it, it becomes the most ecstatic moment of your day, right? It becomes fiery, as you read in the book. But to begin, you have to have a container on it and a time limit on it. And this way, you're honoring both people's capacity for it. Once the practice is done, you can offer each other a bow, and then you get on with your day, and you don't keep putting your feelings or putting your on the relationship. You go through your day, things might come up, right? You're practicing equanimity. But then when you return to practice at the next moment, you notice, okay, what's here now? So it's about returning to the practice and creating a space in your lives together to see and feel consciously. Once both partners feel they can rely on that, the urgency to be the feeler starts to relax, because that urgency is there because most people are starving for that. They've never had it. The moment we start feeding the heart those opportunities, the urgency becomes less and less, and there's a spaciousness for both partners that becomes available.
Got it. Thank you.
Also, in these practices, you're developing skills and you're developing spiritual maturity. When you do this practice long enough, and like he said, your heart can taste the thing it's been dying for. Ultimately, you develop the spiritual maturity that you really only share what's in the right now moment. So when we see beginning people do this, they have a lot of residue from the past. So like she's digging feelings out from maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's legit because she's holding a lot. There's a lot of unprocessed. But ultimately, that doesn't create the same kind of intimacy that the right now moment does, because the only and only place that intimacy occurs is in the right now moment. When you really good at this practice and very committed, and our super advanced students are meditating each other into the right now moment. And every I see and every I feel creates more of that pulse of life that deep meditators feel. You know, like somebody who goes and sits for 10 days. You can achieve those states because it's two of you. And when the two of you get really expert at this, you pull each other into these crazy meditative states, but it's also sexual. So you're deeply meditated and incredibly turned on, pinned in the right now moment, and time disappears. And that's why Justin said it can become the most ecstatic part of your day. You know, in the beginning, it can feel a little bit like a lot of heavy lifting because you're facing things you may have avoided. Very quickly, it becomes something that you can't achieve on your own as a sexual and spiritual being. And that's where your partner becomes like your guru. You're literally polarizing each other into a kind of moment that dilates, becomes timeless. And the thing that's so cool is that that's the same moment that most people feel when they first meet. Their attention is so rapt and enraptured that they're ravished by the moment. It's like just looking at each other. They're like, you exist? Oh my God, what do you smell like? You know what I mean? What do you taste like? Like it's that feeling. You can have it again through meditative practices of I see, I feel. And so ultimately, that's, I hate to say the destination because, you know, we're here just for the journey, but I just beg anyone who starts these practices, don't give up before the miracle, because ultimately it becomes quite literally the best part of your entire day and week and month and year. And these are the practices that allowed us, after we were together for like a good decade, having crazy sexual adventures monogamously, like it just was like a never ending display of fun. And then we got pregnant. And then we had an infant in the house, you know. I mean, then I have two pumps on my boobs and a crying kid, and like our whole deal changed. But because we had these strong foundations feeding our union, we got right back into that place with a whole new set of circumstances. And it's happened for us with grief when we've lost loved ones. It's happened for us when we've had big ruptures because we can't avoid them either. It's happened for us with, you know, a newborn. I mean, we literally use these practices to meditate ourselves back into that juicy place together, no matter what life throws at us. Even teaching together is hard. We meditate ourselves back.
So you mentioned that there's still rupture, which thank you for acknowledging. Thanks for being human at the same time. You know, do you use this practice for all repair, or do you ever, like, I guess I wonder, like, do you compartmentalize? I'm not sure that that's the right word, but like where this is the space that you address any conflict or rupture, like, and that just doesn't happen in other parts, other
I
times?
would say, so we've been doing this dedicated day in and day out for a very long time. So I don't want anyone to feel like, you know, put on like too hard a task. But Justin and I have legitimately gotten to the point where we find other forms of resolving conflict so depolarizing, they don't end in lovemaking. We might come up with some new agreement that takes freedom away from the freedom driven being and feels disappointing on the part of the love driven being. You know, it doesn't create more awareness and more sensitivity, it creates a new rule. Like all of these forms of relating just keep letting us down. When if we discipline non-reactivity in an ICI field, because remember that the basis is non-reactivity. And when you're hurt and there's a big rupture and you've lost trust and he's lost love or vice versa, that's reactivity. That's like maximum volcanic reactivity. So to discipline ourselves to show up to a non-reactive ICI feel, that fight will end in lovemaking, literally. complete union again, not lovemaking because we're grinding out the tension of a fight, makeup sex, not that kind of lovemaking where my body has fully released all defense. His body has fully released all defense. And it's like a lava lamp. It's like we're just merging in unity again. I mean, it gets very unmotivating to try other ways of repair.
And what I'll say is, like, in earlier relationships, we had the experience, and many of our clients experience, when there's a hurt there, a loss of trust, they shut down or they get mad at each other and they go their separate ways, and they'll just kind of coexist in the hurt of that for days, if not weeks. When we started doing this, we realized you never have to live that way ever again. You never have to experience harbored resentments in your relationship. And we can say with confidence, there are no harbored resentments lurking anywhere here. And it's only because of this practice. It's only because of this practice and this discipline.
Could you speak to the importance of your individual practices to complement your partner practice?
Yes. My strongest individual practice is something that I don't even really need to like sit down and do. I'm doing it all the time, which is I see, I feel with myself. Because as Justin alluded to earlier, if your seer is very critical of your feeler and your feeler doesn't trust your seer, that's true if you go do an I see, I feel and your feeler has nothing to say. That's true if you go to do an I see, I feel and the seer says like something critical. And that inner marriage will express itself in the outer marriage. I mean, it's not even a question, will it? It will. Because even if you don't go out and cause a fight, you don't quite trust the seer because the seer is critical. You don't quite have access to the feeler because the feeler's afraid. And with myself and every single one of my clients, no matter what relationship problem they bring me at the start of the session, so they'll be like, oh, we had a moment. And then I said to him, and I'll be like, stop. Let's do an I see, I feel 1 second before that little fight. And you'll see the dynamic, whatever played out with him plays out with her. She becomes like, the feelings of the feeler wake up the seer. And then the seer builds the trust of the feeler until she's in inner lovemaking. And then we come out and we'll say, now, what would you say to him from here? And she comes back and she says, I see how much you love me and you're trying just as hard as I am. There's just absolute conscious love present. When your seer and your feeler are making love with each other, there's just conscious love present. And if I could, may I say one more thing about that?
Please.
Dependency in relationship creates hostility. Now, it's a very sexy idea, this idea of kind of submitting to him and letting him be your leader and you're the follower. And it sounds very good. It creates like very defined roles that everybody knows how to play. And then they create a lot of sexuality. The problem is it eats away at the union subtly until now there's like weaponry going on because dependency creates hostility. So if you've given away all of the structure, leadership, and, alpha of the relationship, his alpha needs to be perfect or you're mad. And if he's given up all of his nourishing connection to Omega, like he can't enjoy singing and guitar and all the ways he used to fill himself back up on a solo practice, your Omega better be on point or he's suffering. And so it gets to be this thing where if our own alpha and omega are out of balance, we have this insatiable need from our partner to behave perfectly or we're mad, real mad. You know what I mean? And so when I have
I've been there. I know what
right?
you
You know exactly, right? Right? You're just like, you're not behaving the way you're supposed to behave. So when you go do that I feel with yourself, and you're awakened in consciousness, awakened in love, and the two are making love, there's like a wonderful wholeness to that that lifts you out of those lower forms of relating into devotion, presence, and conscious love. And then you know the rules of polarity. So when you turn to your partner, you're not bringing them wholeness. You bring them, I wonder if they'd be served by my alpha or my omega right now. Maybe he'd be served by my alpha. I see how hard you're working for us and how exhausted you are. That's a seer statement that melts his heart.
That many men need to hear.
The many men need to hear, right? As opposed to like, you're not showing up for me because you're always working. Right? Or maybe he'd be served by Omega. I feel so excited to feel your body on mine later. We can gift each other when we are full in conscious love. Our relating elevates to a place of profundity. And then we literally pull our partner into that profundity. And now we're just high flying in divine love.
And when we're able to meet those moments with equanimity, with those emotions present, you get to experience an accelerated time, dissolving the resentments, restoring trust, but then also the excitement of makeup sex. Because everyone knows how good makeup sex is. In fact, it's believed by some that couples will fight just for the makeup sex, different ways of releasing tension to come back. But that pattern takes days, if not weeks. When you sit down in the I see, I feel, and you're actually meeting those emotions in real time and seeing with clarity, that's why this practice in 20 minutes can lead from absolute rupture and discomfort to love making, because it's the same energy that plays out when you have a rupture with your partner and it comes back to makeup sex. Here, because we're doing it in such an intentional, conscious way, that whole pattern is accelerated and you experience it in the matter of minutes.
What has made the biggest difference in your experience of equanimity? How did you cultivate that? The stories that you share in your book, I mean, I just find myself going, how did you hear that or to be with that, whether it was the miscarriage or, the crushing weight of COVID and the impact on your business? Um, can you just talk about what it took to cultivate that level of equanimity in your being?
Hmm. Ultimately, walking this path, what you realize is it's about meeting the moment with awareness, with sensitivity, and with non-reactivity, because that's where intimacy is. Even in a moment by yourself, say, for example, I'm a very sensitive person, and I'll go to the airport and I will just clench because it's so abrasive, it's so hard, it's so overstimulating, it's everything. It is my own clench that causes me to suffer. And so if I think, oh, I'm clenching, ouch, right? I'm not being met by life when I'm clenching. How could I let go of my clench? I could recognize what I'm reacting to and figure out what I would need. So I'm reacting to all of the everything that I feel that maybe people don't even realize they're not even present to it, but I'm present to it, right? This is like everyone who's developing sensitivity is present to a lot. So in that moment, I've denied my breath to try and stop feeling, but by denying my breath, I deny my connection. I would need to keep taking breaths. So then I just start with that. Okay, Ah, there's my breath. There's my connection to creator, you know? Already the airport's feeling a little better. Now I would need to just let some of that stimulation wash by me and not resist. It persists, not clench, it clings, right? I could just become like water off a duck's back and just flow with everything that like a wind that's flowing by. Well, by the time I've developed non-reactivity to this whole thing, I'm no longer in full scale resistance to the moment. And now I'm getting the wisdom of the moment. I'm resourced in the moment. I'm meeting the moment, and I'm fully alive in that moment. And this is what we've done one moment to the next in this practice. And what you start to realize is suffering is an equation perfectly balanced by your resistance to whatever it is that's occurring. Meaning there's the challenge, put a multiplication symbol, your level of resistance equals suffering. Bring that level of resistance to zero. Now you just have the problem and you have your full breath and all of your psychic power to solve the problem.
Okay, so is this, I mean, you didn't use these words, but we were just talking a minute ago about your own internal marriage between the I
Mm-hmm.
see and I feel.
Yeah.
And how if your seer is beating up your feeler, we've got a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing that as being really connected to this like accepting the moment, that there's almost like there's a merging of the love and the trust. And if I trust myself, then maybe I'm less resistant to the moment. And if I'm not beating myself up for my feelings, then I'm more available for the moment. Is that
Well, let's look at it this way. We're always seeing and we're always feeling. You can't turn it off. Now, some people will be like, well, I can close my eyes. And what we mean by seeing is you're aware of. So even with your eyes closed, you're aware of thoughts, you're aware of dreams, you're aware of perceptions of the world, and you're feeling constantly physical sensations and emotions. We can't turn these two things off ever. And we do our best to try and suppress them, distract ourselves from them, change them, take pills to feel like we'll do anything to try and get control. But the fact is, we don't actually have control. Control over seeing and feeling is an illusion at the end of the day. We don't have absolute control over that. The sensations in my hand are a completely spontaneous phenomenon, right? We don't get to choose that. So just the act of saying, I'm willing to see and feel this moment as it is, we're already beginning the practice of equanimity. Some people think the word equanimity means feeling peaceful or being peaceful, and that's a misunderstanding. You can be upset, frightened, and still be in equanimity because you're saying, I feel frightened and I allow this fear to be present. That's a totally different paradigm. We're no longer seeking an escape. This is not a strategy to feel differently than we do. It's just a meeting this moment and saying, I'm willing to see and feel this moment as it is.
so? It's like the opposite of detaching, like some of the mindfulness cues are like almost a disowning of the feelings. And you're going like, they're all there and I'm allowing
Yes, I
them.
allow.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Now, when we do that, that lower triangle, when we see and feel with equanimity, at first our experience will be like, okay, I'm seeing this, I'm feeling this, this is terrible, I don't like this, I don't want to keep seeing and feeling, I'm not liking this, here's my inner critic, here's my judge, here's my projection on that person. Like it's chaos in there. We're like, and we're just trying to sit with it and we feel like pulling our hair out. That's the first experience. So the first level is just don't react, to just practice allowing, allowing, allowing. Now, when we do that to a certain degree, if we sit there long enough, so to speak, if her and I sit here and I see and I feel long enough, those feelings of betrayal, of hurt, that loss of trust, eventually, what will start to happen if I'm seeing with equanimity, I'm not reacting. I see her hurt. If she's in the present moment, truly equanimous, eventually she will feel that I'm seeing her, that I'm with her, and she'll feel seen. The moment she feels seen, I can say, I see my woman coming back to me. That is the moment love and trust return. We don't have to love and trust first, so to speak. If we can develop awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity, even if we're so angry, we're so state of mistrust, we start there. But if we hang out there long enough, love and trust will arise on their own naturally. We will experience compassion, understanding. And this has been true for 2,500 years. If we follow the ancient traditions like Vipassana, for example, this is written in those practices. We apply that technology here.
So wonderful.
I do want to bring up one thing you mentioned about the transcendence in mindfulness. What a beautiful practice, right? We're setting aside the self, like, what about me? Me. And we're transcending into something. And that is a powerful step spiritually for anyone to make. But what we recognized in our work was that the intimate relationship, that sort of neutral place of mindfulness, works everywhere else, but in a passionate dynamic, because you end up neutered in the name of mindfulness. Good night, honey. Good night. It's like, where did the fire go? By transcending. Because when we're talking about passion and desire and turn on, it's in those lower chakras. So how do we inhabit
Yeah, if you're
those?
always moving up, there's no energy down.
There's no energy. And then it's literally like harmonious and polite, but like there's no deep F. So really what our work represents is, how do you bring all of that awareness, but rightfully land in full sensitivity? I mean, like pulsing genitals, fiery inner thighs, that kind of sensitivity, with also non-reactivity. So what does this look like when it really heats up? Your body begins to billow like a sheet and you're not stopping it. I mean, this is where full body orgasms come from, because you have all of that awareness, all of that sensitivity, non-reactivity. You let the bodies be done, so to speak, by the energy that creates worlds. And you're doing this together. And so what's beautiful is many people lose their spiritual path chasing desire. What we love about this path is that it takes desire, puts it in a beautiful hearth where it's not burning you down, but it's warming you, awakening you, enlivening you, and bonding you, deep alchemy with your partner. So it's a very unique thing. And, it's really perfect for the intimate moment. You know what I mean? It's how you get those lower chakras cooking without burning down your house.
It's like the antidote to either like my sexuality took me off my spiritual course, or my spirituality took me completely out of my sexuality.
That's it.
And you
That's
guys
well
have
said.
just,
Yes.
That's so well said.
And that is the middle circle.
that is the middle.
That's why I wanted to come there next, because now that we've laid that groundwork, the middle circle makes more sense.
Totally.
Because now in the middle circle, we have equanimity, which is foundational in this practice. We have love and trust through the polarity of alpha and omega, as we described. That love and trust returns naturally from the lower triangle. And then we start to play with fire. I want. And that middle circle is a true symbol of this body of work, which is reconciling the paradox between I allow and I want. Because to be in equanimity, you need nothing to change. But to be in desire, there needs to be a desire for something to change. And the nature of intimate relationship is based in that desire. Now, other spiritual traditions, they don't explore that because they're not working with sex. They're working with loving the world, and that's beautiful. But here we're an exploration of sex with our intimate partner. How can my desire be used consciously that creates more love and trust rather than sabotaging love and trust, which is what it mostly does when it's unskillful. So when we start to explore, I want, where does that come from? So imagine we were doing that I see, I feel practice. Suddenly she says, I feel seen. Maybe she then says, I want a hug. And then I say, I want to taste your lips.
I want your breath to blow my heart open. Yes.
I want to pin you to the ground and hold you there, tease you.
Mm.
So can you hear how quickly the I see, I feel can evolve naturally now into an I want? Now, as we play with I want, we're in the present moment with each other. We're not fantasizing about anything outside the present moment. We're just here. And what we're also doing is we're still practicing equanimity. And that's what creates this incredible sexual tension, which is I want you and I can lean back here and be present with you forever. I want you. I want you. And it's not just reactively grabbing us and trying to release in spasmodic tension. We actually let that fire of desire cook us. And now we're rightfully playing in the field of polarity, where you get to feel that charge you felt when you both first met.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you said earlier, like there's no other repair practice that works for you. Something that you alluded to in the book is like you sleep with pillows between you, like there's some intentional separation. Is your sexual play also limited to this intentional practice for the
Not
sake?
at all.
No.
No. The intentional practice is where you start when you're new to the work, because it breaks all of the habitual, we make love the same way every time. Neither of us can feel a thing, but it's kind of how we know how to relate. And we just do this thing. Or we fight and then we make up. And then 3 months later, we threaten to break up. And then we have love, make love again. Couples fall into very habitual ways of relating. So the formal practice is the medicine for that. It teaches you new neural pathways with each other. It kind of like awakens you to new skills, like widening your awareness beyond yourself and your own defenses, deepening your sensitivity to actually take a breath deeper than the chest and let the genitals come online. Non-reactivity when you hear something that's very charged, like where you might feel like your whole identity is on the line. So the formal practice is strong container for deep skill development. But what's so beautiful is this becomes the soundtrack of your lives. So we make love very spontaneously, but we're bringing the breath that goes to the deep genitals. We're not just like going to a surface breath because it's not practice. We're giving each other that eye contact that says, I'm here. And I'm here for the whole thing, not just the parts that please me. Like I'm here to meet this moment with you. So we're still doing that. We're still in non-reactivity rather than chasing the orgasm. We're on the journey where we're tasting the moment. It's like the practice has taught us to be sexual masters, and then that's showing in the spontaneous play, because there's a depth to the element. The practice is designed to create depth, and once you've tasted that depth, you really want that depth.
Got it. That's so great. That's so great.
There are things that you're just really good at doing. It's kind of like if you go to Pilates and you learn how to activate transverse abdominis when you pick up a bag of groceries, or you learn to activate transverse abdominis in the class, you're going to do it when you pick up a bag of groceries. It's identical. It's like we're doing all of these things because they create depth and nourishment and incredible ecstatic bliss.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Do you have time for a couple more questions? Okay, great. Just
Yeah, our daughter's killing it right now.
excellent. Okay, so London, before we started, we talked about the fact that you were a 54-year-old woman, hot as shit. Okay, like, can you talk about not just cultivating, but the importance of maintaining beauty, sensuality in, in the way that you clothe yourself, do your makeup. Like, I love how in the book you talk about that is something that he enjoys, but you do for you. And so many of the women that I work with professionally, it's like I don't mean this to be disparaging, but they're like caught in the frumpiness, right? Like I wake up and I feel tired. I put on sweatpants, my hair's in a bun, and it lingers. And it sounds like you have a very intentional practice of bringing, I don't know if it's beauty or sexual energy. Tell us about that practice, please.
I would love to because I'm tired. I have a 6.5-year-old at 54. I'm real tired and stretched and overtouched, all of the things that all the moms are. Um, but here's what, and you know what? It's not an obligation on me to like bring the beauty. What you're recognizing in me is different. You're recognizing that when Omega trusts, she blooms. So everything we've already said is what's having this effect on me, which is that I'm in an environment that I trust with my life. Like, and if there's a loss of trust, I'm showing that and then it's getting repaired in the moment. So my level of relaxation, softness, and openness in my home is 10 out of 10. And as a result, that natural spring of life force energy is unobstructed. And then it leads me to like pick an outfit that kind of matches that, or to like do my makeup as young as I feel, or to entice Justin to kind of push me against the wall. You know what I mean? Like he could take my chest and like push into me. I mean, it's coming, like so many women are chasing the beauty. I would rather them chase the trust. Chase the trust because when Omega trusts, her nature is to bloom at every age. She's radiant love. And love is ageless and timeless. In fact, I spend so much time not aware of what my age is. I wrote a story in the book where we went to this restaurant. It was a Japanese restaurant. And we were, our daughter was sitting on Justin's lap, and I was just sitting back, kind of enjoying the two of them being in love. And I was so relaxed and like having the best time and unaware of my age. And the waitress came up and like nudged me and she goes, "Your son and your daughter and your granddaughter are really cute." I was like, "My son? My granddaughter?" Like, oh my God, how old do I like I suddenly got like snapped into this idea of age and that I'm really old for society's standards, you know? And this woman couldn't even imagine that, a woman of my age could have a toddler at the time. And then I suddenly went into shame and I suddenly thought about beauty being like an objective thing. And now it's a game I'm losing. And the next morning in practice, I could barely put on an outfit, because I wear sexy stuff to practice. I'm talking like stuff that I don't even question whether I'm too old to wear it. I just do it. But then that morning I couldn't. And that morning I just felt old and ugly. And that morning I kind of just like limped into the practice room and I said to Justin, "I feel ugly because I don't think I'm young enough for you." And you know what he said? I see my queen who's ageless. I see the woman I want more than any other woman in the world. And I peeled back all of that collective agreement about age that comes from all those products that are being sold and all of that media that's on us. And I suddenly was like, oh yeah, I'm timeless and ageless. And then it just became easy to put on an outfit. So, women, don't chase beauty, chase trust. And if you don't have a man that you trust, guess what? You don't need one. You need a seer that your feeler trusts. You need a seer. And if you develop a seer that you worship, you don't just trust, you worship. And that seer is making love to your feeler where your heart is exploding on a daily basis. It's going to be about 5 seconds before some man swoops into that and plays that seer for you, because men feel it. And I have dozens of private clients where they get this inner marriage cooking, not just good, but great. And then they are a man magnet. Even husbands of 25 years who haven't, they feel invisible around, suddenly look over because they're changing the mandala,
That,
changing the molecules.
thank you. Thank you for that. I might just like cut this clip and like listen to it again and again. So good. Is there anything else either of you would like to share? Like, is there a question you just wish I'd asked because it's right there for you to offer?
I have one thing I wished you'd asked is this fear of sexuality declining with age. So many people are making love surface to surface, and they can just hear the clock ticking, just like sagging, drying up. Pleasure is harder to find. He can't get as erect as he used to. He's got the dad bod instead of the teen bod. I mean, men and women are suffering the clock ticking.
Mhm.
And that is a function sexually of relating surface to surface. But what the yoga of intimacy is teaching is relating from true self to true self, finding a polarity that is based in something completely unrelated to the surface, that is timeless and ageless, that doesn't even require the bodies to combine for full body orgasm. Remember, in the stories, in the books, I've already had a few orgasms before Justin even puts a hand on my body. It's described in detail in the book. How does that happen? Through presence, through breath, through trust, through love, through actual unobstructed awareness, seeing, unobstructed feeling, sensitivity, non-reactivity, devotion, and presence. These are the things that this book teaches you how to do. And the thing is, when you really get good at them, you will never worry about the aging process obstructing your ability to make love again. And it's so liberating being 14 years older than Justin and having absolutely zero concern about the fact that I'm in the throes of menopause right now. Like zero concern. He's just meeting me there. We're just pivoting around it. We're just playing with it. It's amazing. And conscious love is available to us at every age and in every marriage if we want it to be. Yeah. Anything you would add?
No, it's beautiful.
And that's liberating, right?
That is so liberating. So liberating. How do we get more of the two of you? Of course, there's the books, and you teach workshops for couples. Tell us, tell us how else we can get more of
Yeah.
you.
London and I teach monthly group calls online. If you go to patreon.com/yoga of intimacy, we have a monthly women's group, a monthly men's group, and a couples practice evening. So if you're single, you can come to our men's or women's calls. If you're in a couple, you could come as a couple, and we guide you through practices and then do an open Q&A session. So if you sign on Patreon, you'll have access to all of our past calls immediately, but you can also participate live when we run those calls. In addition to that, we host live workshops. We do about 4 or 5 per year. Probably the next big one that's coming up will be at Kripalu. If you know where Kripalu is in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, we'll be there at the end of July, early August. And if you want to find out about our event at Kripalu or any of our online classes or books, best place to go is our websites. So you could go to londinangelwinters.com, London spelled Londin, angelwinters.com, or you can go to my website, justinpatrickpierce.com, and you'll have all the information, all of our books, all of our events coming up.
Excellent. We'll link all of that. You both have thriving social media sites.
We do. Yeah, we do post all of our content on Instagram, so you get daily inspiration.
Yeah.
Or not daily, but most daily.
Almost daily.
Almost daily.
Thank you. Thank you both for your generosity in sharing, in the way that you teach, in the way that you live. It's inspiring, and I'm just really grateful again that you're here with us, that you'd offer so much, and for your courage in living this way.